Hey everyone, my name is Michael Chow, and I'll be talking in this webinar about great tables, structure, format, and style your way to report-ready tables. I'm a software engineer on the open source team at Posit, where I work on tools for data analysis, and I've been really fortunate over the last year to work with a software engineer named Rich Ianin, who's also at Posit on great tables. And I'm really excited to talk about how you can make display tables in Python that essentially let you go from raw data to reports, something nice that a stakeholder can look at. So when I talk about display table, I know the word display table is a funny term. So the question is, what do we want with a display table? We want to take something like this, which is a raw polars data frame. So this is more of a sort of like, if you're doing data analysis, you're like a data frame mechanic. You kind of want to know the raw values and see the guts of your data. This is just your raw data frame data. We want to take this and we want to turn it into something like this. So this is a table that you might display to a stakeholder if you're running a fictitious coffee business and you're worried about sales for the past year. You might take this, and there are a lot of nice insights you can pull out of this, like maybe months where there are a lot of good sales. You can see what's earning well. It's just a lot easier to pull insights and useful information out of this table. So this is what we mean by display tables. The big question is, how do you make tables today? So if you're like me a year ago, you probably took a raw data frame and then copied into a tool like Excel. And this is nice because it kind of lets you format a little bit. It lets you put a little color on it. But usually you have to copy your data out. So you do a lot of coding in Python. You might be doing tons of analysis. And then for this very last step, you have to sort of like take your mouse over the data and paste it into something. And the reality is that this just breaks your workflow. So you spent all this hard work keeping your analysis in Python, but then you ended up at this very last stage, copying it out. And unfortunately, when you copy into things like Excel, it's error prone and can create issues with things like reproducibility and stuff. So essentially what we want to do is we want to let people preserve this workflow and go the full distance in Python. So you should be able to, with great tables, you can take a polars or a pandas data frame. You can pass it into great tables and have a display table that you can share out in a report. You get to keep your whole, you get to keep end-to-end everything in Python. It gets to stay reproducible and reliable. And there's no futzing around with sort of external UI tools like Excel or Word or any of that. All right, so just to give you a little peek, Great Tables is a tool to create display tables in Python. It's not the only approach, but we really tried to make it comprehensive, and we try to develop it really actively. And I would say we're a little bit obsessed with table display. Oops. And I just want to note, I've been working on this for the past year. I really hadn't done a lot of table display before then, but I've been amazed at just how deep it goes. And so my hope is to really convey that to folks today. So just to give an overview, I want to walk through a little bit of how Great Tables sees the world of table display and tries to break it down so it's easy to think about. And then I want to talk a little bit about all the great examples that made Great Tables what it is. And then last, I want to go into how I might learn Great Tables today if I had to start from scratch. Since we've worked on a lot of really nice resources like documentation and examples, I thought it'd be nice to just walk through how I would try to approach the website and how I would try to learn maybe Great Tables from scratch. Okay, so let's go into the Great Tables framework. Okay, so Great Tables has two pieces that it tries to break the world of table display into to make it a little bit easier to think about. So the first piece is table structure. We have this guide for how you might think of breaking down a table. to try to make it easier to talk about the pieces of a table. So this is everything that might go into customizing a table, like adding things like titles or subtitles, or even having labels for your rows or groupings, or at the very bottom, things like source notes to say where your data came from. The other big piece in great tables is what we'd call the three key ingredients, which are structure, which we peeked a little bit at in the last slide, format, and style. And to give you a sense for what these are, structure, here's this example table again. So this is from our fictitious coffee shop. So in this coffee table, we have a little bit of structure, formatting, and style. So basically the structure is we've added a title, and we have these column spanners, which are labels over our columns. And then we took the sort of raw column names and we relabeled them to make them a little bit easier to read. Okay, so that's structure. Going to format. So format, we have these compact dollar values. So notice that dollars here, they're not written out all the way. They're using a shorthand. So this says 568K to stand for 568,000. And this is really valuable because different areas like business and finance or government use different conventions for formatting things like large dollar values. We also are formatting percentages here. So we've just cleaned up percentages so they're not a decimal and they're a little bit easier to read. Okay, so that's formatting. And then for style, we've done three things in the table. So the first, or I guess we've done two, my bad. So we filled in the colors. So we've noticed that we have revenue and profit columns grouped together. And we just went through and we made one Alice Blue, as it turns out is its name. And we made the other Papaya Whip, which is this sort of yellowish color. And this just helps people group things together and quickly identify related information. The other thing we did for styling is we bolded the text at the bottom so that it's a little bit easier to see that this is a total. So these are the three big ingredients: structure, format, and style. And all these activities go into making a nice display table. All right. So we went through the table framework, which tries to break apart table structure into pieces that might be customized to create tables. And then we walked through three key ingredients: structure, format, and style. Okay, so next, let's just look at, I wanted to go through, so we showed you a framework for great tables, but I think what's impressed me the most over the last year is all the examples from the community that sort of went into figuring this framework out, that we sort of had to look at tons of tables out there to figure out what the right way was to break down the problem. So great tables is made of great examples, and most of these examples came from people who are cooler than us. So I wish I could say I'm churning out a lot of cool tables, but in reality, I'm mostly just like absorbing people's bananas tables that I'll try to show you here. All right. So just to give you a little background on all the examples that have gone into great tables, we have to go back in time. So we're harboring a secret. Great Tables is a year old, but there's an R library called GT that's been around for the last 5 years. And Rich, who I co-develop Great Tables with, created GT, and for some freaky reason, also decided to run a table contest in 2020. So he and one of our coworkers, Curtis, they put out the call for table enthusiasts to submit their best, their sharpest display tables so that the cream could rise to the top. And so a huge piece that's helped us a lot over the past 5 years, or rather mostly helped Rich figure this problem out, is all these submissions that people send in of different tables you might want to create. So just to give you a little peek, this table won last year. So this is a recreation of basically a Spotify dashboard by Melissa Van Bussel. It's really incredible. A table's only a little part here on the left, but I think this table's got so much going on and so much great stuff in it. I think so. First of all, it's got the pictures of the albums that songs came from. It's got an icon for a column label, so it's easier to see, just represent visually that this is about song duration. Things like popularity use a circle to indicate, how popular it is, and it looks like also maybe how green it is also gives an indication of that. And then I think that this tracks tempo sort of over time. So right away you get a lot of really cool information just packed in to this table. And this is actually a running dashboard, so you can visit it and you can click into things actually to get more information or even listen to the songs. So this is a really cool dashboard, and this was the winner of the 2024 contest. Just to give you another one, this is from 2023. So this is a table of Amtrak journeys. I think this is my favorite table of all time. This actually wasn't created using Great Tables or GT. It was created using another package, Reactable. And we also maintain a version of Reactable in Python. So I should say the table contest, we allow tables of any variety. Like if it's a table, it's fair game. So this one is a table of the Amtrak passenger rail system. And I think the most incredible thing, actually, I'm just going to try to click in. We'll see if this is a bad idea or not. So it was a good idea. So this is the table. First, it's got this beautiful map up here, kind of in the title, which I'm a giant fan of. Second, it's got all these really great expandable rows. So if you click, you can see a little bit more about this journey. So this is the Northeast Regional. I'm in Philadelphia, so I think this is a train that's very relevant to me. You can see the stations it stops at. You can see ridership over time, and you can see things like when it was opened or rebuilt. I love these things like expanding rows. I think they really are a neat feature that tables can bring. You can also, it doesn't stop at one layer of expansion. You can keep going and see the routes that it connects to. So this table is just bananas. I think, and this is one thing I love about table display, is I feel endlessly stunned by the types of things people bring to the table. I wish I could say I had prepared that joke in advance. Whoa. Sorry, I went to Inception, the streaming thing itself. So let's see. I'm going to go back into sharing if I can figure it out. The answer is I cannot. Oh, wait. Okay. Let's do this. All right. So here we go. So this is the Amtrak table, which I find to be really incredible, with expanding rows, lots of graphics, and interesting information in it. I think a really sort of great use of a table here is this carbon emissions table. So this just shows carbon emissions broken down by countries for different types of power. And what I like about this table, which is made in Great Tables, is that it uses color to show trends. So, for example, like low, very green, like carbon intensity from things like hydro or wind, and then these sort of like higher intensities from things like gas and coal. So I think it's a really great use of color to show information. And I think where a table is useful here is that it lets us see the raw values. So if we need to share a percentage out, we can actually go in and see the exact numbers. So I think it's tables like these that really helped us at Great Tables figure out how to break down exactly what kind of tables people might want to create and how to make it easy for people. All right. So first I talked about a framework for thinking about great tables. And just now I tried to go through the examples that sort of people like Rich and I put together to try to figure out what do people want to do and what are all the kinds of tables they might want to make. And there's just an incredible variety of tables out there. I think every week somebody comes out with a table that's more bananas than last week. So that could be you. That's the goal of this talk, is you could be creating the really bananas tables. Oh, wait, let me go. So I'm just going to try to full screen myself again. All right, we're in. Okay, so those are some really great examples. Now I want to go in a little bit of how I would learn great tables today. All right, so I think there are 3 useful places you can look to learn more about great tables. First is the Great Tables examples page. We've tried to put a really careful collection of tables that go from simple to complex on this page, just so people can get a quick feel for both what's a like simple but useful table to what's a really decked out table. So I would go to the examples page probably first. And as it turns out, it's probably one of our most popular pages on our website. Second, we have a user guide on Great Tables. If you click Get Started on the top bar, where we try to walk through a lot of the key moves and patterns that people use in Great Tables. So whether or not it's different parts of setting table structure or common formatting and styling that people do, we tried to really create a guide where you can ramp up through the kind of big table moves you might want to do. Last, we have a PyCon talk called, I think, Making Beautiful Publication-Ready Tables in Python is Possible in 2024. And there we do a walkthrough of the coffee table that I showed earlier, and we break down exactly how to create the code for that. So I think these are really great resources, but if I had to go through how I would learn about great tables today, I think the reality is I would want to see someone coding great tables. I think it just helps a lot to see people use the tool. And also, I feel like navigating the docs, when you see people navigate the docs, it's just, to me, like infinitely helpful for figuring out like where things are and what's useful for people. So I thought I would just like pony up. That pony up's the wrong term, but I would just live code today to try to show how I would navigate the Great Tables docs and the first few tables I would try to create if I were learning about it for the first time. All right, so I'm gonna go out to the documentation. All right, so this is the Great Tables GitHub repo, and I'm gonna click through to the website. All right, so here you can see this table graph again and a little bit of an example. If you're like me, you probably want to see a lot of examples though. And so that's where the examples page comes in. The examples page is made so that you can see a lot of interesting cases, but you can also expand to show the code for different things. In some cases where the table was pretty complex or where somebody else supplied it, for example, the carbon intensity table, we link out to sources. This one in particular, the coffee table, is actually on this GitHub repo that I'm just holding on to right now, where we have the data and an example script showing how to do it. All right, so those are the examples. But I think it'd be useful to show like how, like, the examples are just things we worked out that we thought might be useful. I figured what could be nice is showing you how I would recreate the examples today and what it would look like to actually go from data to these examples. I think one of the neatest thing is actually all the examples we have. I don't even know. I think we have 16 built-in data sets right now. And the examples are made from, most of the examples are made from these data sets. So you could actually install Great Tables right now and start building out these examples right away. So I'm going to pop open VS Code. I did a little tiny bit of setup. So I created this examples.qmd, and I installed a few packages. Actually, I think I also installed Jupyter. Oh, wait, that's already there. So I installed Great Tables, Jupyter, Pandas, and Polars. And if I were doing that again, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. I would do something like pip install, Great Tables, Pandas, Polars, Jupyter. Nice. I've already installed them, so it was instant. It might take a little bit more for you. Okay. And now what I did is I just took the example. Oh, I just took an example here, and I just copied out the first bit of data where the data is read in. So this is the beginning of creating this table. Let me try to, I'm going to maybe put it right here. Maybe this will work. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to screenshot this. I'm going to do something kind of silly. And I'm going to paste it. As it turns out in VS Code, you can paste images like this. And I'm just going to name this land. Actually, I'm just going to call this land masses. Okay. And I did this just so I could kind of tab between it, so I can show you this table as I work on it. All right. So notice here, I'm going to import polars for now. And I'm importing a few classes I need from Great Tables. So this is GT, this helper thing called MD and HTML. And then notice from Great Tables.data, I'm importing this islands data. All right. So let me, here's the islands data. All right, so right now this is a pandas data frame. All right, so the key is Great Tables uses this GT object, and it just takes your data frame, whether it's a pandas or a polars data frame. And so right away, this isn't the fanciest table. It just does the most bare minimum table you might have. So this is the island and the size here. Okay. So notice that our table's nice, but it's lacking a few things that this gussied up table has. Notice this one has this kind of divider. So these are made into row names. And it also has a title and some things like that. So let's go ahead and just start from the top. Let's add a title to it. So the way you do that is title's a piece of structure. So all the structure methods start with tab, which stands for table. So we'll do tab header, and we'll do title. Let's see, large land masses of the world. Large land masses of the world. Okay, let's see. Whoa, it's too tall. I'm going to use .head, the pandas method, to just get the first 5 rows for now. All right, so it ain't fancy, but we've got a title. The next is a subtitle. Top 10 largest are presented. So that's just part of tab header. Subtitle, top 10 largest, say, are presented. Okay, so now we've got the title and the subtitle. So let's go next to this piece. Notice that there's this dividing line. the key here is that dividing line is, if we look at our table graph, the dividing line is basically for row labels. Notice that you can have a row, like a column that's row labels, that's a special one on the left. So what we'll do is, notice it's the stub. So what we'll do is, I'm going to do tab stub, row name call equals name. Nice. So notice now we have this dividing line. One thing we're missing is, notice the word landmass is here. So this piece, the landmass, is the stub head label in the stub head. I realize some of this language is really, until you're used to it, might seem a bit funky, but it actually comes from a text about table display. There was a period of time where people were obsessed with tables. So this is the stub head, and we label it landmass. All right, next, notice that size has these commas. I'm going to try to just do a little formatting to add those. So, oops, I think that would be, so this is a format action. So we'll do format integer, and the column here is size. Let's see if this works. All right, so notice this formatter just cleaned up the number a little bit and made sure there were commas. One of my favorite things is that if you wanted to be in a different locale, wait. Let's say that you wanted to be in the German locale. You can pass this argument, and notice here that now it uses a period to separate I forgot what this is called, to separate, I think, units. So this matches conventions in other parts of the world. So Great Tables is made to handle, formatting in a lot of different regions and conventions. All right, so this is the table in the first example, and we're pretty far. It's not the sexiest table, but I think it's pretty good. Let's see. There's a source note here about where this table came from. So that's the last piece. That's tab source note. Oh, I clicked a button. So here we can add, I'm just going to copy it out because I'm lazy. The note. Let's do this. Let's see. Oh, I accidentally triggered Copilot. All right. So that's the table. I'm going to now cut out this head so I can see the whole thing. Nice. All right. So we've mostly recreated the table. I'm not totally sure why the order's different. It might just be some quirk. I'd have to look back a little bit. All right. So just to recap, we took a sad basic table here. I'm going to show you. Oop. And we gussied it up into a table with, actually, let me just set up, with a lot more stuff. So with a title, a subtitle, and some footnotes. All right. So that's the first table. I know it's not the fanciest table, but I think at the point that you get through this table, you've done a lot. You've added a lot of structure to it. You did a little bit of formatting to make it nicer. And this table seems pretty good, pretty ready for, I would say, sharing, or publication. Another thing you might want to do, though, is something like this air quality measurements table. So this one's not too much more complicated, but it adds a couple more twists. So one is, notice that these columns have labels over them. These are called column spanners. So I'm going to go back to here. Notice we have spanner label. So this is essentially a label over the columns, and it's called a spanner label. These are really helpful because you can group similar columns together, and it makes it really easy to see, categories of columns in a table. So let's go ahead and try that out. I have the data here. I'm going to delete this other piece. All right, so here's the New York air quality measures. I'm going to type in air quality mini. This was the code to set it up. I just copied it out of the example. So notice here we have I think this is a pandas data frame again. And it's got a few measures. So it's got some numbers on air quality in New York, ozone levels, this thing called solar R, wind, and temperature. I think if you want to learn more, you can actually read the documentation. Maybe, let's see. I think that they're documented here under built-in datasets. Let's see, air. Oh, no, okay. So I won't open a issue live, but I think air quality is not documented in the reference, but the other ones are. So for example, we just did, well, let's say like SCA, there's documentation to try to explain the data, and I'll, in such a frenzy, fill in this one for land masses and air quality. But these are here in the reference, so you can look through the data and see if there's anything interesting. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and work on reproducing this table. So here's the New York air quality measurements. And here's the SAD table we're starting with. The first thing I'm going to do is, like last time, I'm just going to wrap it in GT. Sorry, I need to scoot up. I'm like hunched over like a troll. I don't know why. I just sit like that. So, all right. So notice we passed it to GT, and it formatted just enough, just a little kiss of formatting. So we can see now the columns have like this rule under them, and that's about it. So what we want to do is add these spanners. All right, and then like last time, I'm going to copy this out so we can see it in VS Code really easy. So I'll paste this and rename this to air quality. All right, I'm going to move it over here, and I'll close the land masses. All right, so now hopefully we can quickly look and see what how our table compares to the example table. All right, so first, let's try to just right out of the bat, because we already did a title and subtitle, let's try to add these spanners here. So the way it works is this tab spanner option. And notice the first argument is label. So what we'll call the first one time. So time. And then the second argument is columns. I'll just write that out so it's clear. Okay, so, and the columns we're just going to pass a list of column names. And it looks like they're year, month, and day. So let's try that. Oop. Okay, let's see. Okay, nice. So here it is, year, month, and day. There's one challenge, which is our columns are at the back. So essentially, I think what we can do is we should be able to use a trick called calls move. Let's see. Actually, I have to admit I don't use calls move a lot, so we're going to find out. Oh, no. Okay, I can do this. So calls move takes an after, so I'm going to say, maybe it can. You know what? I failed us so hard. Let's see. So how does the example do it? I'm just going to cheat a little bit. There's, you know what? I failed us. There's a function called calls move to start. So if you get calls move wrong, you can tell people that one of the developers of Great Tables also doesn't know how to use it. All right, so here we go. Sorry, I totally forgot that exists. So calls move to start just says move these things to the beginning. And then tab spanner puts the time label over them. All right, so now let's go through and add the other label, measure. All right, so we're going to add measurement, and the columns are ozone, solar R, wind, and temp. Okay, nice. Cool. So we got the, sorry, it does auto formatting. There's a trick called so what happened was I clicked save, and sometimes VS Code in various situations will automatically format your code. So I wanted to break it onto multiple lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a comma here. This is called the comma trick. And that will essentially tell the formatter to keep them onto separate lines. All right. So we added the time and the measurement column spanner. And that gets us pretty close. The other thing that's useful here, though, is these labels. Notice that there's like a degree sign in the label. So that would be really bad. In raw data, you probably wouldn't want a degree sign in your column name. But when you're presenting to someone, these things really help because they're the units used. So what we can do is we can do something like calls label. And let me look at it again. So temp, comma, degree Fahrenheit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the original column name is renamed to temp. I'm not, again, I have to admit, I'm not super great at HTML, but I think that it is at degree. This is like how in HTML you say write the degree sign. We're going to find out if I did it right. Oh my gosh, we did it. Okay, so this worked. So what we did here is we said, okay, we're going to relabel this temp column, and we're going to call it temp degree F. And what this HTML function says is our label is going to be HTML. And so this at degree bit is how in HTML you say degree sign. All right. So we were able to take and spruce up one of our columns a little bit. All right. So I think that's the gist. I just wanted to go through one more thing because I know people love it, and it's styling. So I don't really have time to talk in detail about styling, but I just wanted to sort of tease at how it works. And to do that, I'm actually going to import polars, and I'm going to import polars selectors as CS. So if you don't know, polars is a data frame library. It's an alternative to pandas, and it has some really nice design pieces that make it really easy to work with table display. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do pl dot from pandas air quality mini. And I'm going to call this, say, like pl air for now. I can just sub this in because Great Tables knows how to work with both polars and pandas. Another interesting thing, though, is that Great Tables is also the default style method for polars. So if I do this, this actually returns a Great Tables table. So notice that for a polars data frame, if you do dot style, it gives you a great table. All right. So what I'm going to do in this very fast lightning round activity is I'm going to try to highlight the row with the, say, highest solar R. So what I'm going to do is I need to import two more things from Great Tables, loc and style. And then I'm going to do tab style. And the first argument's a style. The second one's a location. So what style says is this is what style we want to apply. So I'm going to say yellow. This means fill the background of a cell. And location is where you want to do it. So we're going to target the body where the column is, say, we'll do all columns, but let's do rows where let's just do the max wind. So pl.call wind equals pl.call wind dot max. And what this is this is a Polar's expression. So this represents something we might want to do to our data. In this case, we're filtering the rows to select a specific row where wind is the max value. All right, let's try this. Okay, so notice that now with this little bit of Polar's expression and these style and loc modules, we're able to use this special tab style thing to highlight a row. So I won't go in detail into it, but I at least wanted to tease this set of activities because styling ends up being a huge piece. So this is the gist of how you might use Great Tables. Looking at these examples, we're so open to feedback. I think if you hit any difficulties or if there's anything it can't do, we really want to hear from you. And our repo's at positdev/greattables. So yeah, feel free to open discussions or issues. We're really open and curious for people's feedback. So thanks for being gracious with my live coding. And I think that we have time for Q&A. But this is Great Tables, structure, format, and style your way to report ready tables.